Speaking of moments, you've been, as you mentioned, your career with the Fever. First six, though, were tough, obviously. They weren't as easy. You guys have made the playoffs the last two. What's been the big turnaround? How have you viewed the way the team has grown organically?
At last, Kelsey Mitchell has spoken up. The Indiana Fever's seasoned heartbeat finally gave fans the unvarnished truth they had been waiting for after months of corny interviews, well-crafted press releases, and ceaseless chit-chat from media insiders advancing their own stories. She didn't only respond to a query. Her revelation was so potent that the WNBA is still attempting to understand what it means. She was serious in whatever she said. Each tone was chosen carefully. And Mitchell reminded everyone that being a leader isn't only about making a lot of noise. Conviction is key. Her remarks went beyond simple commentary. That remark had the potential to alter the way we discuss Caitlin Clark, the Fever, and the WNBA in general.
Then you bring in Caitlin, who changed the world, changed the dynamic of basketball. And as a friend and as a player, you grow to appreciate her because, certain doors have opened because she's come to the Fever, and you have to respect that. And I love the teammate and person in her because she's accepted it with so much grace and even welcomed us with open arms to, make this thing happen. So I think it just took a lot of big pieces to make,
Now, Mitchell's simple expression of admiration was the actual point of contention. Was this the first indication of a rivalry between professionals? Or was it something much more significant? A remarkably realistic, brutally honest, and well-thought-out teammate assessment that raised the bar for realism in professional sports. Fans are debating that issue right now. But let's take a moment to think about something more significant before getting into the meat of her remarks. Do you think Caitlin Clark has changed how people across the world view women's basketball in addition to changing the sport itself? Is this the most significant turning point in the history of modern sports? Is the needle Caitlin? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below.
You've changed the world in so many ways. You've done it with so much grace. And I'm so happy to take the floor with you, to be a part of this experience. I want to tell you to give yourself some grace, kid. You've done a lot of things that not a lot of people can do. And from me to you, I'm always going to be a fan. I'm always going to be in your corner. I'm always going to be in your backcourt.
That's how big the question is. And Mitchell's remarks have pushed their way onto the agenda. And that explains why the Fever star's voice is so powerful. Because this is the reality. If you bring up the Indiana Fever at any time or place, you already know what will happen. The question of Clark. It is as unavoidable as the dawn. It makes no difference if the player is discussing the weather, their favorite pregame meal, or a defensive strategy. The topic of conversation eventually shifts. What about Caitlin, though? It is now an inevitable part of Indiana basketball. Furthermore, the player who was compelled to respond this time wasn't a role-playing. Kelsey Mitchell was the one.
But, you've been with Indiana through the thick and thin. You've been with them since, we was talking, we about to go get our rhythm on Indiana. You've been there, you stuck through until now being in the semifinals. What does that feel like? And for people watching, girls, boys, if they athletes, not athletes, what does it feel like to stick through something and now see it come into full fold?
And people don't realize how important that is. Mitchell is more than just a name on the list. She is the survivor of the franchise. She was the only light in the darkness for years, bringing Indiana through dismal seasons that were nearly impossible to see. Mitchell is the same player that led a team that finished the season with just 5 victories. The same Mitchell who put up with 5 and 8 different coaches while opponents viewed Indiana games as a night off, an opportunity to rest their best players and boost their stats. It was her responsibility to take the brunt of the losses, give the press the nice platitudes, and act as were building blocks following a further blowout of 24 points. That was her world. She wasn't engaged in any basketball games. Every night, she was pushing a boulder uphill.
You guys have made the playoffs the last two. What's been the big turnaround? How have you viewed the way the team has grown organically?
Oh, man, I think a big shout out to the organization taking time to rebuild. I think our draft picks ended up coming big. Lexi Hall was a big draft pick, and then you get Kaylin, and then you get AB. And so you culminate that together with, my experience and having to, go through a couple things before they got there. I think it was just like a match made in heaven, really, because I was, still at a young age to really, vibe and get to know these players for who they were. And then you bring in Kaylin, who changed the world, changed the dynamic of basketball. And as a friend and as a player, you grow to appreciate her because, certain doors have opened because she's come to the Fever, and you have to respect that.
Thus, it's not merely lip service when she eventually talks about Caitlin Clark. She is fantastic and contributes to the team in a meaningful way, therefore this isn't a hollow. Rehearsed PR jargon is not Mitchell's specialty. She provided us with something honest, unvarnished, and honed by years of living in the league's cellar. As a result, she confirmed what most people can see, but few have the courage to publicly state. In addition to changing the craze, Caitlin Clark has revolutionized the basketball community as a whole. Mitchell's precise remarks struck like a shift in tectonic plates. Clark has altered the world and the dynamic of basketball itself, she stated. Take a moment to process that. That isn't flattering. From the one player who could have easily been resentful, that is a shocking revelation. The main character of the Fever, the one who persevered in the face of agony and insignificance, stared into the camera and effectively stated, "None of this occurs without Caitlin." Everything from the foreign coverage to the primetime games and sellouts.
Now, you were an MVP finalist this year with our own Chiney Ogumike.
Increases the potency of this even further. The absence of jealousy altogether. She spoke with real respect, without any sense of bitterness, passive-aggressive tone, or anger. That is the reason Kelsey Mitchell's remarks are so uncommon and novel. She also didn't devalue herself in the process. This wasn't giving up. This was equilibrium. She gently but forcefully reminded everyone that she was the one with the franchise before to Caitlin's arrival. She laid the groundwork for Clark to have a platform to stand on when she arrived by working tirelessly during the most trying years. And there is no denying that fact. Because of Mitchell, the Fever avoided becoming completely irrelevant during a long time ago. Mitchell was the driving force behind the franchise's identity, even as the league disregarded Indiana and other players brushed their resumes against them. She was the generator preventing the entire building from going dark, not just the lights. Her commitment is now paying off in 2025, not just in terms of numbers, but also in terms of legacy. Mitchell did more than only recognize Clark's influence. She reaffirmed her own, while also elevating it. That's what makes her statement so brilliant. It was not a matter of picking sides. Its purpose was to remind everyone that genuine leadership has no fear of competition. It accepts it. Fans nationwide are still discussing her remarks because of this. Not because it was ostentatious or theatrical, but rather because it was authentic. Mitchell simply changed the course of events in a league where petty rivalries, jealousy, and bitterness have all too frequently shaped the narrative, driven by seasoned players like Asia Wilson making fun of others or Cheryl Swoops taking jabs. She demonstrated that you can honor a generational icon like Caitlin Clark while maintaining your own legacy, and that respect and expressing the truth can coexist. She also provided the WNBA with the much-needed authenticity in doing so.
Oh man, it's unbelievable. I'm having fun with it.
Kelsey. Without going back in time to the Fever's voyage, Mitchell's reflections cannot be properly comprehended. Indiana remained the league's punchline when Lexi Hull joined the team. The franchise was hardly relevant, wins were infrequent, and losses were frequent. When the squad barely managed 5 wins in a season, Mitchell was the one grinning as he answered questions about building blocks during news conferences. She had to pretend to be hopeful and hopeless, even though she was well aware of the burden she was bearing. Aaliyah Boston, the post-powerhouse, then appeared and gave some hope. Her arrival resembled a flag being planted in a wasteland. All of a sudden, Indiana had what appeared to be a basis. Naturally, then came Caitlin Clark, a supernova who influenced not only basketball but the whole sports media landscape. Her arrival immediately turned the Fever from a joke to a major story. Mitchell didn't pout, whine, or demand anything during it all. She changed, welcomed the reinforcements, and realized that this was the long overdue shift she had been anticipating rather than a threat. That is why there is so much weight behind her support of Clark. She is aware of which it is that sells tickets and changes culture because she has experienced both iterations of this business.
I love the teammate and person in her because she's accepted it with so much grace.
It's been focused on her. But
Yeah.
what has it been like as a teammate? Because sometimes people are stepping to her, but I feel like you guys
Yeah.
are stepping right back in those situations.
I think it's just it's competitive nature, man. You know how it goes. It's just competitive nature. I think that we want to fight to, love on our team and be who we are and respect the game at the same time. So I think it's a lot of just competitive nature at the end of the day.
However, Mitchell's remarks went beyond merely showing professional deference. They carried a more profound and intimate message. She referred to Clark as a friend rather than as a teammate. Outsiders are unaware of how important that one word is. Friendship is not a casual term in professional sports, as rivalries and egos can sabotage harmony. It's an indication that Clark's addition to this roster has gone smoothly, even improving. Mitchell asserts that Clark wasn't merely there to be the star. She arrived with the intention of fostering an atmosphere in which everyone might flourish. This is an important distinction. Super teams have collapsed in other leagues. Too much ego, too many stars, and not enough unity, and all of a sudden, what appeared to be invincible crumbles under its own weight. That is a trap that Clark has escaped. She doesn't insist on being the only one in the spotlight. She radiates light like the sun, enhancing the brilliance of everyone else's game. Mitchell's career serves as evidence of that. Ever since Clark arrived, her profile has taken off. She is playing basketball at her best efficiency, scoring points in crucial postseason situations, and at last receiving the credit she has long earned but infrequently received. In the absence of Clark, Mitchell might have continued to be the WNBA's best-kept secret. The entire country is listening to her. Furthermore, Mitchell respects that dynamic rather than merely accepting it.
Game one, I saw Caitlin post that she was fined $200 by the league for stepping on the court. So was there like a locker room pool for her there, or did she take care of that herself?
Man. I'm pretty sure somebody took care of it for her. I love it because as much people don't know this about Caitlin, but she has an unbelievable funny sense of humor. And so I think the tweet was the tweet, but you just have to know CC to know that it's just nothing but love coming from that kid, and her energy and her effort to just kind of support our team is just her way of doing it.
Mitchell told a tale that perfectly captures this connection. Caitlin Clark's excellent tweet. Pundits went into overdrive after Clark made a lighthearted joke on social media about getting fined. Critics interpreted it as immaturity, classlessness, or conceit. However, the locker room with the Fever was hilarious. Mitchell disclosed that it demonstrated Clark's humor, something the public seldom notices despite all the stress and publicity. The players laughed and enjoyed it. Perception and reality were clearly distinguished in that story. Controversy was visible to outsiders. Character was observed by teammates. Mitchell's conclusion was straightforward.
Calm down.
Caitlin is simply being herself, and that's the unmistakable indication of a locker room in good health. That tweet would have caused a commotion if Clark had been resented. Rather, it turned into yet another instance of how her presence enhanced team cohesion. This leads us to the Fever's Fab Four, the most terrifying revelation for the rest of the league. Boston, Hull, Mitchell, and Clark. They're more than just a playoff squad when they work together. They serve as a dynasty's template. Mitchell also expressed her commitment without holding back. She made a suggestion that if maintaining this core meant taking a pay cut, she would. The unsaid rule in today's sports environment is getting the bag. Such a proclamation is practically revolutionary. It shows that Mitchell is aware of the wider picture. She will make a personal sacrifice to ensure that Indiana's historic legacy endures. Why the loyalty? Because Mitchell recognizes the signs. The Fever are no longer the league's doormat. They are the storm that is blowing across it. This team had a foundation rich in talent and chemistry thanks to Mitchell's devastating scoring, Hull's perseverance, Boston's supremacy in the post, and Clark's fame. They are constructing more than just a run at the playoffs this season. It's about transforming Indiana from a punchline to a superpower, rewriting the WNBA hierarchy and establishing a culture.
And look, you guys have been plagued with injuries, including to Caitlin,
Yeah.
but you have the best sideline in the league.
It's a good experience to have.
And certainly, cynics can scoff at the idea that friendship might be the engine of a championship team, but the results speak for themselves. Mitchell thinks so. It is fueled by Clark. It is anchored by Boston. Hull embodies it. Together, they have transformed a franchise that has long been linked to futility into must-watch television. The Fever have given up on gaining respect. Every night, they earn it and demand it. Then, Mitchell's remarks weren't merely flattering remarks. They were a manifesto. She was stating unequivocally that Kelsey Mitchell is committed to becoming a part of the transformation that Caitlin Clark has brought about in women's basketball. There was not a trace of jealousy, without resentment at the change in focus. Rather, there was appreciation, inspiration, and a steadfast feeling of collaboration. That is uncommon in athletics, which is precisely why Indiana feels odd at the moment. While jealous veterans like Asia Wilson and Cheryl Swoops and Commissioner Kathy Angelbert spend their time downplaying Clark's impact or inciting needless animosity, Indiana is creating something genuine, something enduring, something that supporters can unite around not just for a season, but the rest of the league in doing so. Recognize the situation in Indiana or risk being left behind while the Fever rewrite history. Because the WNBA will have more than one challenger to fight with if Mitchell, Clark, Boston, and Hull stay together. It's got an issue. A warning shot was fired directly at its previous power structure, signaling the beginning of a dynasty. How do you feel about the friendship between Caitlin and Mitchell? Tell us down in the following remarks. Turn on all notifications, like, and subscribe to ensure you don't miss anything. After you click the video on the screen, we'll meet you in the following.